Hello and welcome to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. Really excited to be talking with someone who I've known for a while, who has been building a fantastic practice around Kansas City and the surrounding area, and actually transitioned out of a career in politics. I know that is in and of itself its own little touchstone that he either delights in talking about or is exhausted by talking about it. And too bad I brought it up, so I'm sure we'll get into it. But always seems to have a heart for all of it and a quick wit and willing to laugh. So someone who, in addition to being an entrepreneur, I consider to be just an excellent, excellent human being. So Kevin McManus of Kevin McManus Law, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a longtime listener, so it's nice to finally get to see you on the podcast personally.
That's awesome. Okay, so Kevin, we always start off with the question: what is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Well, you've probably heard the same things from a lot of folks. I think the business aspect of running a law firm in general is just something that I was not taught. But I would be more specific, and it's something I think everybody deals with, whether or not they're running a law firm or not, and that's managing people, and in particular, probably leading people to where you want to go as a team. So I think that's something I definitely did not get taught in law school, but it's super important.
Wow. Okay, so that is a big and important topic. The idea of not just managing people, but leading people. And this, I think, is really interesting in talking with you as someone who has the background in politics, having served locally as a politician. The idea of leading people to a vision where a lot of times in politics, it's not just your specific vision, but it's, say, a collective vision of which you are there to represent and carry out the interests of the people. And now you've made the transition to being the person who is a sole owner of that vision and needing to lead your people to your vision. I'm curious how that adjustment has been for you and what that feels like.
Well, that's a great question. It's very different, but I guess there are similarities. I always thought I served on our city council and then later as mayor pro tem. He's kind of like the second in charge of the city under the mayor. And I was in that position for 4 years. Before that, I was just on the city council for 4 years. Before that, I was in the state legislature for 3 terms. And so I think what I've seen in a lot of different contexts is in the political world, at least, the strength of your ideas and the ability to actually accomplish those is not just dependent on you spouting them out or even the merits of the idea. It's really about how you can galvanize people to support your ideas, right? So I could say, in the context of trying to pass a law, that I think this is great. But if I don't have actually broad support from the community, people who are going to show up and make a big damn deal about it, complain about not getting it done, making sure that they're in everybody's ears in order to get it done, it's that sort of social capital that I think really moves the needle. And sometimes you're in opposite factions, so they're battling against the pros and the cons of it. There's another team on the other side, and so that is maybe a little different than I guess running a law firm. But there's similarities. Like you got to have your team behind you, right? They have to be willing to support your values, your ideas, your mission. But I think the one difference I would say is that within the context of a law firm, you really have a lot of control over how to establish who those people are on your team, right? You get to pick and choose that. Mm-hmm. You get to, I think, have a little bit more control over the means of accomplishing your agenda. And I always tell our team here that it's an idea of meritocracy. So like, just because I'm saying we're going in this way, and this is something we're working on, it doesn't mean that I'm always right, and as a law firm leader, I think that's really important that you've got equal levels of confidence and humility to be able to be willing to listen to the people who you're working with at your firm to get feedback. because I think they want that buy-in. I think ultimately you're going to get a better result in the end. That's a
Oh, I
lot to
absolutely agree
unpack.
with that idea of getting that's good. We love having a lot of information here. Love to have a lot of stuff to chew on. Although I will say, Kevin, I think you're the type of person who perhaps somehow the training to deliver a good message in a tight amount of time, you can go on an expository diatribe that I think to you feels like 20 minutes when it is in fact been about 2.5 minutes. You could pack a
Fair
lot
enough.
into a smaller framework. Yeah. Uh, so the that whole leadership idea for you, was the state of leadership, was this something that you naturally gravitated towards? Was this something that was thrust upon you, that you sought out? Like, how did all of that occur in your life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I was always interested in. I was a poli sci major, interested in the process of how things become laws. Like that's partly why I went to law school. I didn't go to law school though thinking I was
Mm.
necessarily going to run for office. I just wanted, no matter what I did as a lawyer, I wanted to feel like it had some sort of community impact, and that's always been important to me.
Mm.
And I think that's what drew me in. I mean, I started volunteering for various causes and campaigns, and ultimately just crossed paths where there was an empty seat in the legislature and was encouraged to run and did it. And I was 31 and probably didn't know the difference. Someone told me, they said, the worst thing that could happen is you could win. And I didn't really understand it at the time. Thought they were just being a jerk. But now I get it. I get it. And so it's hard to like go backwards and understand where you got to and how you got there. I
Mm.
never thought I'd frankly be in this position, running a firm. So, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like anything, and probably you say the same thing. I know you say it to me or your coaching clients. It's about like being intentional with your life and being open to change, like being open to, if something's telling you this isn't right and you go in a different direction, like there's no rule that says you have to just keep going. You have the
Yeah,
capacity
that's right.
to change paths and to do something different. So, it's been an interesting road for me. I wouldn't take it back. I mean, I have no regrets, but it has been a zigzag. It has not been a straight line.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you just look at the way that political entities, the parties, were often referred to as machines, right? The political machine, but that dates back 100 plus years. I mean, you talk about, especially in the late 19th century, there are these various bosses running their various machines throughout the country. You went into the political space, which, has a degree of ladder to climb, machine entity behind all of it, to now having that freedom to look out onto the horizon and say, guess what, folks? This is where we're going. That
Yeah.
entrepreneurship journey. What do you like most about it, and what has been the hardest part to adjust to?
I mean, God, I love everything about it. Let me put it this way. Of course, there's times that I wake up
Awesome.
early in the morning and I'm worried about this or that. Like, so, but that's the burden I think we all bear in that position. I think though, wow, the level of control you have on your destiny, your life, like it's second to none. Like we get to decide what kind of clients we
Mm-hmm.
take. I know that seems like very obvious, but that's an extremely powerful thing, to be able to say, I'm going to do this kind of work and I'm going to help these sort of people, but not those.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's, I think, for me, one of the top positives. I think beyond that, though, of course, who else am I letting in my life? Who's on my team? What are our values? What's our mission? All those sort of basic elements, I think, go into living a life with
Mm-hmm.
intention, like figuring out what I want to do and then creating it. That's an extremely powerful thing. And I think a lot of us take it for
Oh,
granted, but
yeah.
there's a lot of people out there who don't have that. They wake up and they're told what to do and they have to live within someone
Yeah.
else's. Of course, we all have limits to this, right? I mean, I have a family, I have kids, and I'm doing what they want, right? At the end of the day, let's be honest. But um,
Yeah.
I have way more control over my life than I did in my prior careers, for sure. And I think that's the biggest positive.
You kind of tucked an interesting thing in there, which is, a lot of people wake up and they are in the process of helping someone else maybe achieve their dream, right? They're within an entrepreneurial organization like your own. I'm curious, as you're growing this firm and you're thinking about the culture of the practice and that idea of creating a space where others are actually excited to be there, what are you
Yes.
doing from the ground up to make sure you have that type of business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great question. It's something I think about a lot. Actually, I was just thinking about this because we're gearing up for our first session on EOS. And so we've got our group getting together to really start
Mm.
talking about like having these hard conversations about what, we've talked about these are our values, this is our mission, these are the people we're trying to serve, but like actually getting input from the team on that and making sure that they feel this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, feel the buy-in, like feel like they're part of defining that, right? And at the end of the day, I
Mm.
mean, that's what we want. Like, I really don't, we will go so much farther together, I believe, if I have people on the team who not just want to be here, but want to excel, like want to make this a 1+1 = 3 situation or 5, whatever it is, a multiplier. And that's, those are the kind of people I want in my life just generally. And it doesn't, I'm not just talking about money. Like that's what it may sound like, but really it's way beyond that. It's, having a richer life in general, having a, and being around people who want to grow, being around people who are not just like wanting to check the box and come in and get their work done, but really grow in all aspects. And that's what, for me, that's exciting. And it doesn't mean it's just lawyers. It means it's like every level of the organization, having people in those seats that have that sort of mentality, I think is key. Not just for growing our organization, but just making it fun to come to work.
So let me ask you that idea of making it fun to come to work while still balancing, hey, we have to get the work done. What approach are you taking with that?
Yeah, I think it's well, EOS has a certain structure to this, right? Like you're trying to get in alignment and have clear
Mm-hmm.
objectives and KPIs to measure these things, right? So certainly we have to meet metrics, like that's part of it. But man, the culture is, the longer I've been doing this, the more I see people who have really grown their organization. It's the culture is the thing that really drives it. And I think having a culture
Mm-hmm.
that is fun, like it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, right? I mean, rule number one is don't be a complete jerk, and and that would be pretty simple. Um, but beyond that, I think it's about like letting people be people, right? Like letting them have lives, letting them, providing opportunities to have, to get your group together and be social and to do things that are fun. One of the things one of our goals for this year is actually to be, bring our team together around helping a nonprofit, and having sort of a core give back mission that everybody's going to be a part of, and not just making it happen, but really defining it and in a really tangible way. So we're in the early stages of that, but I think, it can't, I think we go farther when we make it not just about the metrics. I mean, we have to, at the core, meet our metrics, but there has to be something more to it. Because, the thing I hear more and more from folks who are particularly on the younger end of the spectrum is like, this isn't just about, they want to feel like they belong somewhere. And it's not always, the money is important,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the defining aspect of who they are as people. And, that's how I feel about
Yeah.
life. And I want to be around people who feel that way too.
So how do you go about finding people who are the right fit, identifying them, and
Yeah.
then bringing them into that sense of mission and purpose?
Man, that's hard. That might be the hardest part
It
about this whole,
is.
you know, and I think we've been fortunate. We've been lucky, I think, in a lot of ways. We don't hit just home runs every time, though. Sometimes you miss. But I think not rushing into hiring is really important. I mean, that's kind of an old adage, but I think that's super important. You've told me this before. It's just like always be on the lookout for good talent, for people who meet, not even just the skills you want, but just the values and the personality and the culture that you are trying to engender. I think being on the lookout for those people early, even before you need them, is key. Because the interview process, man, it's really easy just for people to come in and say what they think you want to hear. And for me, the only way to really weed through that is to have a lot of levels to it, to involve other people. We involve my team in the actual hiring process early. And I mean, we've had people that we've interviewed that I'm like, I'm gung ho, like this seems like a great fit. And my team's like, holy hell, did you hear what they said when you were out of the room? And then I'm like, okay, that's, that's why we have checks again.
Yeah.
It's that idea of meritocracy. It's like, you got to have those open feedback loops from your team. And I think that really helps. So that's a long way. I mean, I think don't rush, involve your team, and really try and go deep with people. I think probing questions in that interview process, just to get beyond the basics, to see, one of the techniques I like to do is actually push them to a point where they have to make decisions in situations, hypotheticals, and see how they react is the best way, I think. But ultimately, the only way is to test it. Just have, at some point, you got to test people out and give them a chance and see how it goes.
That's right. I mean, at some point you have to, especially as the executive of a small but very much growing firm, have to make a decision. And you have to go into that decision at times knowing that there is a risk of failure. So this is probably one of the biggest hangups for a lot on the entrepreneurial path, is the acknowledging some of this will fail. That is a fact. You're in it long enough and you will fail in certain ways. How do you handle that type of pressure? Because it seems to me, Kevin, you're pretty at ease in many ways. So I'm really curious, what's the secret sauce for Kevin McManus?
I'm going to make a joke, but no, I won't say it. It's, cannabis is legal in Missouri. No, I'm not. I'm just, no, it's not that. It is, I have inside I'm churning, Charlie. I look at ease, but no, I think what it is you got to be willing to make bets. And I don't like gambling. In fact, I don't really like many vices, but gambling's not my thing. But you got to recognize what it is. It's a bet. I mean, anytime you hire somebody, it's a bet. And you make a choice on a vendor. It's a bet. You make a choice on, for us, contingency fee case. It's a bet, and you're going to lose some. So what you have to do is you just have to diversify and also get as much information as you can to try and make the best decisions possible, and to be able to protect yourself in the event things don't go the way you want. When I started off, I was a much smaller firm. I was a solo not too long ago, and now we've got a team of 12. And really, in just a few short years, we made a lot of bets, and they've worked out. But I think having the ability to, play different sides of the table at different points can help. So for us, for instance, every case we have has 3 people on it. In the instance, somebody, it's not that somebody may leave because they were a bad bet. It may be that they've just decided this isn't for them, right? So you have to hedge your bets.
Right.
I guess is the easiest way to summarize it.
I mean, that's fair. Honestly, it is one of those concepts that I find that sometimes just reinforcement of the fact of the matter is really valuable for people to hear. It's that classic idea of, why do we have a saying like a penny saved is a penny earned? Like, they're trite, but turns out maybe those sayings keep getting spread around for a reason. Now, actually, the idea of a penny saved is a penny earned is a little antithetical to the entrepreneurial approach. It's really a penny invested is potentially 2 pennies earned. And as you're in this entrepreneurial path, you mentioned that you've scaled relatively fast in the last few years. Take me along that journey, and what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome along the way?
Yeah, I think it's like anything in life. It's about deferring immediate gratification. I mean, that's, to me, because you settle a big case, it's really easy just to take the money and run. But that's not what we've done here. Is we've reinvested in the firm, or you make certain good bets on certain people, they're helping us produce more cases, more, even if they're not huge cases, they're just consistent. Again, we're reinvesting in the firm. So we're deferring gratification because we believe that, we're in it for the long game and that the interest does compound. So I don't think, I think saving a penny isn't, I think there's something to that. For us, we're reinvesting it and we're just trying to hope and pray that this thing keeps compounding like it is, because it seems to have worked for us the last few, years. And so we're just sticking to it, but it's hard. I mean, believe me, it's hard. I think though, what I just remind myself is like, what would you rather have? Like, for me, I sleep a lot better at night knowing that, we're keeping, my living expenses. We don't live an extravagant life. Like we're keeping things simple in our life so that we can play the long game and provide a great place, for people to work and be around for a long time. And that's, for me, that's the biggest mental change that I see. I see a lot of folks who are smaller firms and, they may be taking 90% out of their revenue into their pocket. And I just, that's one way to do it. We're doing it differently.
That's a very kind way of putting it. That's a good way to lock yourself into a business model that ultimately can't scale and stresses you out and, ends in catastrophe.
Depends on you for everything.
That's one way to put it.
Yes.
Yep. That is, and that's not a place that, a lot of entrepreneurs really want to be. Now, in growing the firm, something that you and I have talked about oftentimes is marketing, right? So the acquisition of clients, you can't scale at the speed that you have scaled without acquiring more clients. What has worked particularly well for you in getting more clients?
Well, I mean, for a while, I thought this whole political thing was a big, not transferable. And it really hasn't been in terms of getting clients. So let me be clear about that. That has not, if anybody ever says to you, you should run for office, you'll get more clients. I'm going to be the first to tell you that's not the best strategy. There's a lot easier ways to get clients. Believe me, the headache ratio is much lower in a number of different marketing ways. So but what it did teach me is how to run a campaign. And I mean that in the broadest terms, like a marketing campaign. And I think, what does that mean? That means like not being an island to yourself, being out in the community, talking to people, letting people know who you are, what you're about, who you serve, and following up, because the follow-up is where it's really at. And so for us, we publish a lot, we put ourselves out there a lot, but I think the earliest success I got was actually just being willing to go knock on a stranger's door, frankly, like I did when I was running for office, and talk to them about how we can help each other. And it may be a referral partner, it may be another attorney, but like those sort of relationships, man, that's powerful. It's hard to do, certainly as you grow and keep scaling, because you just keep getting busier and it takes time. But when you're small, I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, it's very simple. People have done it over and over again. It's getting in front of people who can send you cases and developing a relationship that's mutually rewarding for both of you.
And that last part is important, a mutually rewarding relationship. And the idea of having the fundamentals done well is obviously in an era where we have a new platform or new technology available and on a significant scale available every 3 to 6 months with some radical introduction, it'd be very easy to get away from those fundamentals. How do you stay undistracted by so many of those? Or maybe you are extremely distracted, but distracted. Just have barriers to prevent you. Okay. So no, you are distracted, but you don't seem to engage heavily in distractions.
That's right. I mean, it's setting boundaries. Like, we'll try this or that new thing, but we're setting boundaries with it. We're setting limits. And I joke when I say I'm distracted, I feel like we're all distracted right now. It's really hard not to be distracted just with how much is out there in the media. And I don't mean like the television. I mean like everywhere on our phone. everywhere in our lives. Like we're just constantly getting bombarded by messages. And so it's just like anything. You got to set limits on that stuff. If you're trying to chase the shiny thing, I think you got to remember what the fundamentals are. And while everybody else is chasing the shiny thing, I think really getting back down, that it's really going to speak volumes when you go retro and actually go knock on someone's door. Can you imagine how crazy that is? But that's what I did. We literally did that to try and meet people and to tell them what the firm's about and, how we can help them. And I think, man, it's hard, but it pays way more dividends when done well. Well, I won't say way more because I don't know. Maybe clearly spending gobs of money serves many firms very well. It's just that's not the method that we've A, been able to use, or B, chosen to use. So I think it's just like setting boundaries and getting in front of people, and be willing to test things, but don't forget the fundamentals.
It's funny that you mentioned kind of big broadcasting, because that's something, and I know a decent bit about your firm. That's something that probably isn't farther away for you than you might imagine, where you hit that level of scale where some sort of brand advertising gets combined with the level of direct response. And when you think about Kevin McManus, the brand, the law firm's brand, how do you describe it to someone, like what your firm is about?
Yeah. Well, I always look at it through the lens of who we're trying to help, so I start there. And so we have two practice areas. We're helping, folks who have private disability insurance, usually governed by ERISA, who've been denied disability. And then we're also representing folks who are in terrible accidents, who were in that situation with no fault of their own. So, and that's pretty common. But I guess to be more specific, what we're really about is providing really high level customer service and attention. I say customer because that's the way I think about it. Certainly they're clients, but our folks don't really understand, like, what they really want to know is what's going on in their case whenever they need to know it, and that they know what the next step is. And so we have tools and techniques to do that for them. But it's really high quality communication, great results, but it's the personal touch. And I think that's what you lose as you grow and scale. That's the challenge that I see with the mass marketers. And it's frankly the opportunity for folks like us is to come in and really develop a really personal relationship with your clients. To me, that's the biggest differentiator.
So I'm curious, as you're thinking about that challenge of providing the really high level customer service, great client experience, where they do have an intimate relationship with the firm, but as you think towards scaling, what are you thinking about right now in terms of reconciling those different forces and what you can do today to ensure that level of service in the future?
Yeah, I think it's tools like, we use Hona. It's tools like, there's technology out there to help people know where they are at in their case at all times. We use FileVine. It's, it has texting capabilities. So it's that level. So there's certain tools out there that I think increase the accessibility, but it's also the training of your staff and your team to not be afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? And to be actually eager to do that.
Yep.
And when you're talking to your client, it's not just about, hey, when's your next appointment? It's, hey, what's going on in your life? More broadly, like, how are you doing? And really developing that personal connection over the phone. So I think those two things are important. But beside that, it's, we're getting back into, regular rhythm of direct mail, like newsletters and e-newsletters. But nothing beats the personal touch with the phone call. It's, I don't know anything that's better than that. It's hard. Again, it's hard to scale, but I think if you have the right people with the right training, it's totally possible to do it. And you're staffed appropriately. That's the other aspect.
Yeah. Right. And, as you scale, how are you balancing the level of staff that you need to do the work today in a personal injury contingency fee-based practice, while still thinking with this growth mindset of, hey, I need team members to grow? What's that balance like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's we hire people at various levels. So we have some paralegals that have been doing this for a while, and they're really good at what they do, and they've seen a lot. And then I have some folks who are right out of paralegal school, and they're new. I hired a wonderful gal who's amazing, who'd never had prior legal experience, is bilingual, and was working at our local hospital and doing patient advocacy. Okay, so she had no legal background,
Oh,
but was dealing primarily with folks in the Hispanic community here in Kansas City. And we serve quite a few of folks. A good portion of our practice is folks who speak Spanish first and foremost. And so she's been awesome because she's just got a great attitude and she's willing to learn and jump in, and she's growing really quickly into her role, but she's also, wonderfully bilingual. So I think it's just finding the right mix. Not everybody is going to be the same. It kind of comes back to that, and nor should they. You want a nice balance, I think, of an experience. Of course, different levels of expertise come with that. Mm-hmm. But what I found is that it gives, on the spectrum, this inner training. Basically, training is happening every day in our firm. Every day it's an organic process. And it's not, what's interesting to me is it's not happening from me. It's happening from others. It's happening kind of trickled out because we have these different verticals in the way we staff our cases. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's really helped us. And it's helped me, I think, in terms of balancing the payroll too, which is also important.
Payroll, that big old expense that happens to come our way every couple of weeks, give or take, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking ahead to the next, 3 to 5 years, what's on the horizon for you? What's really exciting you about the future of Kevin McManus Law?
I'm really excited about doing more and more disability work. I think that's an area that's underserved in our community. There's not a lot of folks doing this work in the 2 states I'm in. We're also doing it in other states now because ERISA is a federal law. And so I'm passionate about helping those folks because I think, frankly, a lot of the reasons they're getting denied is just total BS. And so we've had a lot of success with that. And I'm excited about growing that practice area further. Also, the Spanish-speaking community. I'm excited about growing that area of our firm as well. But, at the end of the day, it's like, it comes back to, I'm just excited. I just feel so lucky to come to work and be around people I like and do something I love. I mean, it's just like, I know it sounds cheesy,
I love it.
Honestly, if I have that, everything else kind of seems to take care of itself, and to me, that's the biggest joy.
I love things that are a little bit cheesy, a little bit corny.
It's simple, but it works, I mean, I just imagine that.
Yeah, truly. I mean, we need more room in this world for a little bit of cheesiness, a little bit of corniness, like just some good old fashioned. Yeah. And I consider myself one of those people to have a little bit of like an aw shucks attitude at times, right? Like, this is cool, man. This is fun. Let's enjoy this. We're among a fortunate group of people building cool stuff in the world. And, part of it's the classic luck formula. It's preparation meeting opportunity. We've done the work to prepare, and we ended up getting a great opportunity that we've capitalized on. And it's very fulfilling. So Kevin, before I ask you the final question here, if people are interested in learning more about you, more about the practice, connecting with you, where should we send them?
Yep. Law firm website is Kevin McManus Law. Kevin. McManus is McManus. Law LAW, and .com. And find me there. I'm on all the socials, but trying to get better about that. I don't know any of those links.
That's
but
right.
You can find the rest
there. Andrea right now is listening to the episode going, no, Kevin, give them the links.
Right.
But yes, you can find Kevin on all the platforms. All right. So the final triple question, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Oh, man. Reading. So reading, I've got, I'm going to mention this because I already finished it, and it's Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And you were the one that recommended that. I highly recommend that for anybody out there. But the fun book I'm reading, I like biographies. I'm reading Ben Franklin's biography. You mentioned The Penny Saved and Penny Earned. It kind of made me laugh. But Walter Isaacson wrote that, and it's a fantastic book. And it kind of dovetails because my fifth grader is going to DC for his school trip, and I'm chaperoning. God help me! And so I'm reading that, and because he's super into the American Revolution, the Founding Fathers stuff. So anyway, that's what I'm reading. What was the other one? Watching
and listening to.
Watching and listening to. Man, I don't watch much TV. I need to work on that. So, I know, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I think you're okay. I'll go ahead and back you off of that one. You're fine.
Well, I like Larry David, so Curb Your Enthusiasm's great if you're in a bad mood, especially. And then lastly, listening to. I've been listening to by Rick Rubin, and this is cheating, an audiobook called The Creative Act. And Rubin is the guy who's like, he's worked with musicians of all walks of life and doesn't play any instruments, but his book and him reading it is fascinating. It's all about the creative process. And so I've really enjoyed that. So, and I like anything he works on musically, I think is amazing. So I'm a big fan.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, Kevin, my friend, I appreciate you being on the show, sharing your story, your insight, your wisdom, tips, tricks, strategies, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Charlie. Today. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure.
Good. And we'll see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.